about the roles.
And are you working from Cape Town? Are you from now?
Sorry? I think
Yeah.
I lost you there for a second.
No, I just said, where are you working from? Are you working from Cape Town or from?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm in Cape Town. Yeah.
How was that move? That was a while ago now. Right?
Yeah, 7 months ago, I think. Yeah.
And enjoying it.
Very comfortable and getting used to the area, and yeah, it's good.
Where are you guys?
In Edgemead, around the corner from Brian, which makes traffic life very, very nice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Shirish, you're the top qualified planner in that business.
Yeah, Brian's on my heels, but yeah, at the moment. Yeah, he was still saying, "Don't worry, if you don't pass this round, you'll be writing with me in March, April."
Yeah, well, now the pressure's on, eh?
Yeah.
How you doing, Russell?
Hi, morning. How's it, guys? Good. Yourself?
Yeah, we're all good, eh?
Congrats, Alex and Sharice. I saw you guys passed your CFP competency exam. So welcome to the team.
Thank you very much.
A board exam sounds more intimidating, Russell.
Yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, your guys' hard work paid off. So yeah, well deserved, man. Hope you guys celebrated nicely on the weekend.
We did, thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, let me just see. I know a few people couldn't make it, so I'm recording this. I'll remember to record it. Chapiso's got flu. I don't know if Salome is joining. I know Brian's away. Frank can't make it. Okay, I think maybe we should just kick off, guys. So I think a lot of you know Marc, either through I don't know through COVID. Marc's really active on LinkedIn. I've got to know him through LinkedIn and an online presence, and then we finally had a beer together a few months ago, which is quite intimidating because he's actually quite a big guy. He's quite frisk. Yeah, Marc's really dynamic, and he's gone the route of being almost, I know not completely, but fee based, and I know that's his long-term goal, and he's one of the guys that's doing that really well. But we're not going to talk about that today because then we'll get sidetracked again. Marc's kind of developed his own process for clients where he incorporates I think asset map, and then he also uses the Carl's one-page plan. He uses a version of that, and I know a lot of us have all shared our processes, and I just thought it'd be really interesting because whatever Marc's doing, it certainly works because people are paying him for it. So I'll hand over to you, Marc.
All right, cool. Hey guys. Yeah, I think I know most of you through the kind of online world. I think maybe just before I'm just going to say what I do in my presentation meeting, so that you can see, I don't know, how I kind of like end off the meeting and pitch the fees and demonstrate value to clients to get them to pay the fee. I think the big thing for me is that I moved from Joburg to Cape Town. I was going to fly back to Joburg once a month to see clients. COVID happened. I didn't have to. So everything moved online, which was fine to do meetings. And then we kind of just embraced the online world as well. But I had big plans to grow the business when I moved to Cape Town based on Cape Town clients. Obviously, with COVID, we couldn't go out and see anybody, and I needed to continue to grow. So I needed to find a way to do that in an online world, which is a separate thing because there's a whole like marketing thing that goes on there. But once I had calls with people, I needed to figure out a way to demonstrate value in an online space, understand their problems, show them that I understand it, how we would go about doing this, and then, you know, it almost like close the deal, which is a fee-based arrangement, but in an online world. So, you know, I struggled for a long time do that until I sort of developed this little, like, I don't know what you want to call it, this presentation that I have at the end of my process. So maybe just on the process quick, I start with an introductory call, I have a discovery meeting, and I have a presentation meeting. And at the end of the presentation meeting is where I ask clients to carry on, right? So if they see value in what it is that I do, this is the plan and this is the fee. If you see sufficient value, let's move forward. So only at that. So I kind of give away 3 meetings of my time at my expense. The idea is that clients get to experience what it is we're going to do, because up until they experience it, they don't really know what lifestyle financial planning is or what it is that we can do, or all of these wonderful things that I'm saying, if we can actually deliver on that. Right? So even at that point, it's then a point in time which says, all right, so if you see value, this is the roadmap and this is the fee. And they still then need to make a commitment to say they're going to pay the fee for the next 12 months. But they've got to experience a little bit of something. So maybe just, I'm going to show you the presentation meeting, but before that, we've had a discovery meeting where we've got to sort of, so introductory call, are we a good fit? What's your problem? Where you're at? Can I help? Do I like you? Do you like me? There is going to be a fixed fee. It's going to range from 20,000 to 70,000. So that conversation happens there. It won't be less than 20. It won't be more than 70. It's nowhere near 70. That's just like a reference point, so that when I pitch my fee, people think, oh shit, well at least it's less than 70, as opposed to saying it's going to be 55 and then it won't be more than 55 and then I give them 55 and they're like, why am I paying the most? So it's just a bit of, I don't know, psychology. But yeah, so they know that in that meeting we decide we're going to go to a second meeting, the discovery meeting, and then I use the asset map discovery link in that meeting. So in my booking process, on Calendly, on the right hand side is find a time, on the left hand side here's a link to start your asset map journey. And I never really encouraged people to do that up until I developed this little presentation which works quite nicely. Now I'm starting to say, okay, cool, so in the introductory call, if you're comfortable and we're going to move forward, you're going to get a mail to book a meeting. And you're going to get a link to start your asset map journey. So if you could go through that and start populating everything, that gives me a whole bunch of context for our next meeting. So we can chat and I can question into everything that you filled in here or haven't filled in here. So they do, sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. But then we have the discovery meeting and we start with all the life planning stuff. So who you are, where you're from, how you got to where you are, what's happened in your life that's sort of shaped the way you show up around money, and just in a very informal way. So, just talking about, okay, cool, so you're this person, who are the people in your life, your spouse, your kids, your parents, and then going back, just really in a natural way. And while they're doing that, I'm just taking notes, right? So I'm just writing stuff down. If they have done the asset map journey, because it's a bit intimidating. Somebody sends you a link, and now you click on this link and you go to a web page, and now you're expected to divulge everything on this web page. Some people are against it, and also with the discovery link, you can see how far people get in that journey. So it'll say 45% complete, 100% complete. Sometimes they do everything, and other times, they put their income in, and then they stop. Right? So for whatever reason, but then we'll sort of question into that. And some people are like very sneaky, like they don't trust it completely. So it is a thing that I need to speak to the guys at Asset Map about, because people will put in stuff, but then they won't put the actual amount in. It'll be very close, but not the real amount, or their employment. They won't say who the employer is. They'll abbreviate something, which I guess is, we're just got to break through that going into the next meeting. So discovery meeting, get all the personal stuff, get all the numbers behind it, right? So in the discovery meeting, we've got assets, liabilities, incomes, and very important in my process is a detailed budget and expenditure. So I want to know where everything goes, right? So that when we recon this, when I show them it in IWP, that number on the budget surplus or deficit is exactly the number that they've got on their spreadsheet, right? it's just very important in the planning that we do. So we get all of that stuff. We then go back and myself and my team sort of do the work, and now we're at the presentation meeting, right? So presentation meeting, Marcus exports to asset map, the current scenario, and I think I'm going to share now, and then I'll just sort of talk you through as if you were a client and how I would talk to them about it, right? I think that's the easiest way if you're comfortable with that. Just a quick caveat, RWP had some stuff they did over the weekend, and I see now I don't know, something's happened here, but maybe we can figure it out as we go along. They updated and did some changes, but anyway, so we would start there, right? So, just check in with the client. Hey, Paul. So this was a referral, and I've purposely used this client maybe just because my marketing is predominantly for women in finance. And this is a man, right, who came to me, Paul Ronquist. He was referred by an existing client. So even though I wanted to use this guy, even though we market specifically to women, when men show up, there's a couple of criteria that boxes that they tick for you or don't, right? So, are you engaged? Do you want to live a great life? Are you prepared to do the work? And are you comfortable paying a fixed fee? Whether you're male or female is irrelevant. If you tick those boxes, then we can work together, right? So, so we show up here and check in with Paul. How are you doing since we last met? Everything, fine. He recently started a new job at RMB. That was his sort of like pain point that triggered him to reach out to somebody. So he left Standard Bank, moved to RMB, had a whole bunch of questions about what to do. Predominantly, what should he do with his pension fund? And you'll see in the process, in my discovery or my introductory call, I was like, that's great, Paul. I can help you with all these questions, but we've got to do it in this way, right? So this is how we get to those answers for you. So yeah, check in with them. He had a birthday on the 1st. How was your birthday? Great. How's work going? Cool. All right, Paul. So today is a presentation meeting. I'm going to take you through what I understand to be your world as it is right now, right? So this was what we would call your current reality. It's a snapshot of your life now based on everything you've told me. And then I'll jump across to some other software and we'll show you what that life looks like now and into the future. So then we sort of scroll down here and I'm sharing my screen with him. And at this point, I'm saying, Paul, okay, so these are the important people in your life. It's you, it's your wife, it's your son. Don't worry about this. We'll get to that just now. So Paul, at the moment, it's you in the middle here. On the left, we've got your income, right? So this is the new salary at RMB. We've got the taxes applicable and your annual expenses, right? So these are all the incomes, which gives you a budget surplus of just under $500,000 a year, right? So one of his concerns was what to do with the budget surplus. So I would address that lightly here and say, look, so one of the things you raised, Paul, was, what are we going to do with this money? And as you go along, you'll see I start to highlight to you the things that I think we should do in order to help you achieve the things that you've said are important to you. Then underneath that, we've got all your retirement assets, so your Standard Bank pension fund, your RMB pension fund, which is at zero. You've just moved. You've got the contributions going in there, and then the 2 Liberty RAs, which you've also asked me to look at, which we will do down the line. So you've also told me, Paul, that you want us to deal with the pension fund, which we'll do. As we go along, you'll see, and if we're happy to work together, we'll put some recommendations on what we think we should do there. So above you is your current risk cover that you've got in place independently of your employer. As you send me that information, I'll update that and include it in there. And then to the right is all of your liquid savings, right? So we've got your money market fund, your son's school fees fund, which is actually in the same fund, and just in his mind, he's segregated it. So I've also segregated it so that he can clearly see, it's not 325, it's 100,000 of school fees that are coming up in December, and 215 is really the actual rainy day fund, as per what he's called it, right? So I would call it an emergency fund. He's called it a rainy day fund, so we call it a rainy day fund because it's his life. Then he's got a Standard Bank online share trading portfolio, which he's asked us to look into. Paul will discuss that along the way. We've got your vesting shares here. This is a sign-on bonus at RMB. There's a lot of terms attached to these shares, Paul, as you sort of disclosed to us. So I'll show you how we treat them. I don't want to discard them completely because, as you can see, that's quite a sum to tie 5 million. But I'll show you how we treat it in your planning to tie up with what you've told me about it. So we've got your tax-free savings account and then your offshore share portfolio, which is through WebTrader, and at the moment it's just in Vanguard ETF. So no one's managing it, no one's looking after it. That's again another thing you've asked me to check into for you, which we'll do later down the line. All underneath you is your primary residence in Bryanston. Values around 6 million. You owe 2 million. It's something we'll look at. You're also getting a cash sign-on bonus of around 2 million, and you need to find a home for it. So I'll tell you what I think we should do with that money as we go along. Right. So just to summarize quickly, you've got your retirement assets of 4.8, liquid assets of 10, and net equity in your property of 4 million. So we've got about 18, just shy of 19 million in assets, right? Does that sort of sound right to you? Yeah, and then you'll agree and then say, okay, all right, cool, thanks, Paul. So now I'm going to take you to the cash flow planning software, which we use. And that is represented over here, right? So again, I would take him through everything, right? So I'm just going to take you through one or two of them just to show you how I do it. But we'll start with the pension fund. So I just want to illustrate to him what's going on in the back end of IWP. So how the assumptions are made and what projections they're looking at going forward, right? So I'll say, Paul, this is the new pension fund at RMB. It's got a zero value, obviously. But we also make some assumptions here. And if you look at it, basically, they're growth assumptions. We don't know how this portfolio performs. We've assumed inflation plus 2 to 3. We can change that. We prefer to be conservative, but if you're confident it's going to grow at a higher rate, we can change that, right? There are also some fees. I don't know what those are. Once you send me a report, I'll be able to get those, and we'll input accurate fees in here for you. In terms of contribution, so there's a monthly amount that's going in here between yourself and RMB. 35,200. It is tax deductible up to a certain amount, and I've aligned the annual escalation to the assumed escalation of your salary. Right? Okay, cool. So 5%, 5%. Basically, what we're saying is this 35,200 goes in every month up until the time that you retire. Okay, get that? Great. Just to show you on the pension fund, this is the Standard Bank pension fund. It currently still sits with Standard Bank. That's why we've got it illustrated there. Same sort of assumptions, same sort of fees. All right, cool, got that. RAs is the same. You've asked me to look at the contributions here, Paul. Is it adequate? Are you saving in the right place? I'll show you what I think about that a little bit later. Shares, importantly, I really just want to touch on the vesting shares. So you've told me that these shares, they're different to Standard Bank, that they're not guaranteed. This is the rand value, but it's very much dependent on RMB's performance at the date of vesting. So there's a whole bunch of conditions attached to it. They may or may not materialize at 3.1 million. So what we've done is we've illustrated it as a surplus asset. There are multiple asset classes that we could use or classifications: lifestyle, investment, business, surplus. Surplus brings it into your equation, but the software never dips into that money, right? So for now, we'll show it, and at a later stage, once this money's actually materialized, then we'll change the asset classification. Cool, makes sense, because just from not talking to Paul now, just from a client perspective, this is a big chunk of his potential wealth, right? Like just short of 5 bar is a lot of money. So if I just exclude this altogether, he's going to raise it. He's going to say, where are my vesting shares, Mark? Like, why have you just excluded those completely? And it's an ego thing as well. So you need to be aware of it and sort of play into it in a sense. So we've got that there, and we've told him, look, so 8%, we assume it grows at 8%. If it was managed, it could do more potentially. I'm not sure, but we'll deal with those as and when they actually vest, right? So Vanguard ETF, we've also just assumed, so we use this little section over here just to say, okay, cool. So $213,000 in dollars. When we did the planning, it was 1544. That's how we get to the 3.2. Return assumptions here, same thing, 8%. It's not managed. We don't know what's going on. I haven't looked at this yet. Potentially there's room to get better growth. I'm not sure yet, right? And the same for the other two share portfolios. And then I sort of go through all of the assets like that, just validating all of the inputs, getting him to say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. On the property, we link all of the associated expenses to the property, right? So here's your home, Paul, in Bryanston. Outstanding bond is 2 million. Your rates and taxes 5.6, electricity 3. Your fixed bond repayment 15.11, and he's got a discretionary bond repayment of 12. I just link it all because it then it gives you a snapshot as the client when you see it like this. You say, that my house actually costs me a lot of money to run, right? If I get rid of this asset, I could potentially save what's that, 23,000, 24,000 rand a month. Whether they think that or not, it just shows it in one place. So that's why we do it. We go to the assets pool. Of any other assets here that should be here that I haven't included? No, that looks about right. Okay, cool. So we've got 20 million, just short of 21 in assets. If we look at the liabilities, we touched on the bond, so it's 2 million on that. And so we're looking at like 18, just short of 19. Cool, that makes sense. All right, cool. Incomes, you've got a salary. Your salary RMB is 200. That should say gross. It says net anyway. It's taxable. So we use a gross salary because we take all of your deductions off of your payslip. You send me your payslip and I deduct everything, right? So I want that net number to be as close as possible, his budget surplus to be as close as possible to the number that he sees in his spreadsheet. So we put the 200 in there. The planning takes the tax off, and then we've got all of your deductions. So we've got your medical aid, we've got your pension fund. If there's anything else coming off, we'll have that in our side so that the two line up. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, cool. No other income for now. You'll notice, Paul, we haven't brought in your potential cash bonus into your planning. How do you want to treat that? Typically, what we do is we exclude it unless you particularly tell me to include it, because the nature of a bonus is that it's a bonus. So you may not get it, and we wouldn't like to make your planning reliant on getting your bonus. If you want to bring it in, we can bring it in. It's up to you. Okay, cool. So we're going to leave it for now. Yeah, so incomes, expenses, right? So we then have a detailed expenditure analysis, the debt repayments. We've touched on this. Just a side note here, I've had to change this because I don't know what updates IWP has done, but he's got a fixed 15, that's his bond repayment, but he's also saving 12. And when I had this in here now, IWP gave me an error. So I'm just going to leave it in for now. So he's got 12,000 that he's voluntarily putting into his bond as well. And that's one of the questions, should he or shouldn't he do that? Insurance premiums, paying 9 grand in premiums. Outsurance on the house stuff, 4.2 on his Liberty policy. Again, one of the questions, is that sufficient cover? Is he paying too much? It's all stuff we'll get into, just not now. Investment contribution, so 35 on his pension fund, 4.7 on his RA, 2.3. So basically 42,000 rand going into fixed restrictive savings every month, right? Are you comfortable with that? Maybe not. Given your plans to leave the country, it potentially isn't. But we'll touch on that later. I'm highlighting everything. I'm just not giving him all the answers to his problems yet because he hasn't agreed to pay my fee. So you kind of got to tiptoe around it, but in a way that demonstrates sufficient value. So living expenses, we've gone through some of these, but then here's the line item stuff. So petrol, vehicle, Vodacom, bank services, driver or pair, it's a thing at the moment. It's not guaranteed. It may be coming in. I put it there to show that I've heard him, but we don't have a rand value on it yet. His mom cost him 8 grand a month. That's a problem. That's why I asked who are the people in your life, because we want to understand where he's paying money to, and what those future contributions are expected to be. Yeah, so those are the fixed costs. Then we've got the medical, and his medical aid is 7.6 a month, which comes off of his payslip. So this is a little caveat that I've always got to revert back to and say, your total expenses are 108,000, and he'll be like, "Jeez, that sounds a lot, Mark." And I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, you haven't factored in the medical aid, at 7.6, and you haven't factored in the 35, right? So take those two numbers off. The guy did a little bit of mental maths. Then he's like, yeah, that sounds right. So we've got 108 all-in expenses. We've got 200 all-in income before tax. Let's just check at oh no, don't go there. Let's just check at your budget. So Paul, roughly you should have about 35 grand a month available, right? Surplus. Does that sound about right? And then he'll yeah, that sounds right. Or he'll say, no. Geez, I don't have that much cash. And then I'll say, okay, so well then what have we got wrong here? And then we'll go back and I'll say, well, if these are your expenses, where are we? What are we missing? And then he'll tell me, no, shit, we've got everything. And then I'll just be like, well, this is something we obviously need to work on, right? Because if we've accounted for everything, we need to 35 or whatever the difference is going missing somewhere. And this is one of your biggest tools that you've got to use in order to do the things you want to do. All right, cool. So that'll then become some work. I don't go into the risk benefits now. It's something you'll see in the plan that I say we do a little bit down the line. I don't know if this is going to work. So now I say, okay, cool, Paul. So we've amended some things here. I'm going to click this little button here, and it's going to show us what this all means for you now and into the future. Like I said, we've changed some things. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but just remember, blue is good and red is bad. All right. And now we've got this error thing here. Let me just, I don't know, see if I take this to, what's going on here? I'm just going to delete this for now. Save. All right, cool, that's worked. All right, so Paul, we said blue is good and red is bad. This looks very busy. Let's just switch off some of the things here. So let's take off goals. Let's take off liquidity. All right, so what we're saying is of that 18, you've got 10 million in investable assets. Should only 10, Mark, just refresh my mind. Okay, cool, then we'll go back and say, primary residence of 6 is not investable. You're going to sell that thing. You're going to replace it. You're going to have to live in it. Unless you tell me otherwise, that's the assumption I'm going to make. And then we've got those, like just short of 5 of those assets, which are represented here, but the planning doesn't take those into account. All right, cool. What we're saying here is you start out with 10. If you retire at 65, you get to a asset value of 22 million in today's terms. And all things being equal, you run out of money at 101. That sounds all great, right? But then let's go put things on like your goals. So these are all the things you told me are important to you. Your son's education, you said it's 110,000. We haven't done an accurate calculation on this for you. If we agree to work together, this is something we'll do. We'll go get the fee schedule from Saints, and we will plot it out for the next 8 years of your son's life, so you can get an accurate understanding of what it's going to cost and how to fund it. Cars, you told me cars are important to you, so between you and your wife, you're going to replace, I think it's her car next, and that's only going to happen once, right? So between now and retirement, there's one more car on the horizon. You've told me where you really enjoy spending money is on travel, right? So we've got local holidays. This is happening twice a year, 25,000. We assume this is stopping at age 80. And then you've told me international trips is what you guys like to do as a family. So 150 grand a year. And this is happening every year. And I've stopped this at retirement because your retirement plan is not to be in South Africa. Okay, cool. Happy with that. All right. So just go back here. Now we've got all of these lovely goals in your planning, which also looks cool. But we've got this horrible thing here called liquidity, right? So what we're actually saying is, although you've got all this cash, you're not able to fund your lifestyle past the age of 62. There's 21 million in various assets. We can dig into it, but you can't do the things you want to do. Okay, cool. Some people may want to unpack that now. I tend to steer the conversation away from that and just say, this is the start.
Mark, you're just hanging. Let's just wait for him to come back.
Sorry, guys.
No, okay, we just lost you for about 30 seconds there, Mark.
Okay, cool. Let me go back. can you see my screen still? Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to minimize you. All right, so, yeah, all right, cool. So get his views on this. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Steer the conversation to where I need it to go, because otherwise we get caught in a trap of fixing this problem right now, or trying to, and he hasn't committed to a relationship where he's going to pay me. So, all right, cool, Paul. So this is what it looks like now. I want to now show you what I have understood you want your life to look like, right? So based on the conversations we've had, you've told me a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to show you via asset map what I understand that to be. So it's a little bit cheesy, but we call this, we typically call it Paul Ronquest 2.0, so it's the better version of your current life. In this instance, we've gone with Ronquest family, because one of the things you've told me are important to you is bringing your wife and Jita into the conversation. So up until this point, you guys have done your planning completely independently. She kind of plans for the fun stuff. You plan as if her income isn't there, and it works. But, you know, given what you guys want to do and achieve in the long run, you know, you've said it's important to bring her in, right? So this is the family now, and it's the version you've told me of the life that you want to live. So if we go on the left again, so we've got your income here, which is unchanged, but now we're starting to bring your wife's income in, right? So her income is here as well. She's got her own separate taxes. She's got her own separate set of living expenses. So these things now are going to drastically affect your budget surplus, right? And this is, like we said, is your biggest tool at this point in time to build out this life that you want to live. All right, cool. You know, now he's thinking, shit, Mark's heard me in bringing my wife in. He's listening, right? So that's what I'm trying to demonstrate there. Underneath, Paul, we've now got your assets. I'll come back to this dollar-based retirement, but here we've now got your Standard Bank pension fund, and we've moved it into a preservation fund, right? That was one of the important things you told me you want to do. So we've illustrated that. We've also brought your wife's RMB pension fund into the mix here. You know, you told me she's been there for 8 years. You know, that's sizable, and it's something we should include in our planning, and yours remains. For the dollar-based retirement, you know, this ties into your desire to not be in South Africa post your son's matric, right? So your son finishes matric at age 51 for you, and you've told me between the age of 51 and 55, you don't want to be in South Africa anymore. So if you can stay here between now and then, that's first prize. And at age 51, you guys want to leave, right? So I've called it a retirement, but 51 to 55 is still very young. So I'm going to refer to it as your second chapter, right? So you guys are going to move, and you're now going to, you know, start the second chapter of your life. You've told me also that it could be New Zealand. Your wife's got family there. It could be Australia. You like the idea of Australia. It could be Europe, right? So at this point in time, we don't know where you're going to go. We just know that you don't want to be here, right? So we need to plan accordingly. And the way that I think we should do that is picking a, you know, hard currency. I normally go with dollars, and let's plan for a retirement in dollars to fund the second chapter of your life, wherever you are in the world, right? So it's semantics. If we go Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, euros, they're going to have their own fluctuations. Let's just look at a US dollar and plan accordingly. Does that make sense? Comfortable with that? Yeah, cool. Mark, you've heard me. I like that. Great. Let's go to the discretionary on the right, and you'll see at the top here, there's a couple of things with zero values, and this is the type of planning that I like to do, Paul. So you've told me you guys love traveling, right, and locally and abroad. So I like to bucket things, and you can tell me if this works for you or not, but I like to create a specific fund for it. So if you're going to spend, you know, 150, 175, 200 grand a year on holidays, you know, we want to know that there's a bucket of money that you can take from to do that. We don't want it to be funded through bonuses. You know, so I brought that in. Are you comfortable with that? Would you prefer to do it differently? No, for now, that's fine, Mark. Let's leave it like that. Okay, cool. So holiday fund, you know, here's your son's university fund. So while he's at Saints, you know, you're comfortable that you can fund it. We'll still run the calcs to see what it's going to cost. But university abroad is going to be a big expense, right? You know, we're not talking 110,000 a year. We're potentially talking between 500 and $1 million a year. So that's going to cost, right? So we need to understand now, and then you can plan for that over the next 8 to 10 years. Okay, cool. You'll see I brought something in here called an offshore recurring endowment plan, right? So basically, the question you asked me on your retirement annuities is that money doing what it should, or could it be put to better use, right? So I haven't looked into these RAs yet. I don't know what they're performing like. I don't know what the costs are. All I know is that you don't want to be in South Africa post, retirement, potentially before. So committing extra money into your retirement annuity, which are restrictive in nature, is probably not the wisest thing, right? And it's something we'll discuss, but potentially, if we could get that, I think that's just short of 7,000 Rand a month. If we could get that 7 grand a month out of the country now, building up this global retirement, that for me, that's potentially a better use of those funds. But you'll guide me on that, right? Okay, cool. So vehicle replacement, look, you're going to replace your wife's car. Let's allocate money to that fund so that when that time comes, it's available and you can do it. All right, cool. The rest is as is, right? So nothing changes on that front. Nothing changes on your property front for now. We haven't dealt with how you're going to allocate that sign-on bonus, because I need to get your buy-in on these goals and priorities and where it is that you want to allocate funds, right? Does this all make sense? Yes. Questions? Cool. Now I want to show you the potential implication of changing a couple of things around in IWP. So if we go to 2.0, let me just fix this quickly. All right, so let's go here to 2.0. Right, so there are a couple of things that we can do. And if we look at the pension fund, so you'll notice we've moved the pension fund out. That's now into a preservation fund, and we've assumed a better growth rate, right? So that is one of the levers that you've got at your disposal, is to select where the funds are invested and how they perform. When it's in a pension fund, you've got very limited involvement. Typically, Alex Forbes runs this thing, and you've got 4 choices, right? So you're in long-term peer group, stable, or money market. You don't know what's going on there. Given your retirement outside of the country plan, we would want as much offshore exposure as possible, and the way I believe we can do that is potentially through a share portfolio where you can sit with the manager and you can tilt this thing as much to get slightly more than 30% offshore equity exposure through the use of South African inward listed stocks who grow abroad, right? And okay, cool. So, I've now potentially looked at a 12% return. I'm not sure if that's too high or if it's deliverable, but when we meet with the guy who's going to manage the money, he'll have that conversation and tell us if our assumptions are right or not. Cool. So we've got that there. Savings accounts, right? So I've now brought in these little things that you've told me are important, your goals. We've illustrated those there. And I've also assumed that to pay your son's school fees, we're going to allocate 9,000 Rand of your budget surplus. I'm not sure if that's the amount. I'm just starting to dip into that surplus that's available so we can get it doing the things you want it to do. All right. This is the offshore endowment plan that we've looked at. You'll see I've taken your RA contributions, which were 7,000, and I have taken them out of there. We've allocated it here. We'll dig into this thing properly once we're on board on working together. All right. Okay, cool. So we've made a couple of other changes. But briefly, we can take your picture from looking like something like this to potentially looking like something like this if you remain in South Africa. All right, cool. So the idea here is we can do a whole bunch of scenarios, which we will do based on the life you want to live, and we'll be able to give you the information you need to make the decisions that will align with the life you want to live. All right, cool. So we're not going to go into this now. This is something that we will give time to, but I just want to take you back to your proposal. All right, cool. So this is all great, and there is a lot going on. But what I want to take you through now is something we call a one-page plan. And we start the one-page plan with my understanding, Paul, of your life, right? So again, if we agree to work together, we're you're going to need to make this your own. But I just want to illustrate to you what I've heard you say and what I think is important to you. So we start with your statement of financial purpose. Why is money important to you? What do you want from your life? What's your why and what's the vision, right? So my understanding again, Paul, is that money is a means to an end for you. You've told me the journey is as important as the destination. You and your wife work hard so you can enjoy your time together as a family, traveling, enjoying good food and experiences. You enjoy life in South Africa, but you don't see it as a long-term viable solution, and you plan to spend your next chapter abroad. And you would want your finances to be prioritized to allow for that. How does that sit with you, Paul? And then he'll tell me, yes, no, I think you've summed it up nicely, or, yeah, there and thereabouts, and don't take it personally, like, well, this is just me, right? So this is what I've understood. What I'm trying to do here, though, from a planning perspective, is demonstrate how I've listened to what he's told me is important, right? So I want him to think, shit, this guy is doing things differently. He's listening. He's hearing me. He understands what's important to me. Okay, cool. So let's look at the goals, right? So these are the things that you've told me are priority. Correctly invest your Standard Bank pension fund. Ensure your existing assets are invested optimally and cost effectively. Align your budget surplus to your long-term plans and family priorities. Plan out the second chapter of your lives abroad and allocate your resources accordingly, and combine your wife's planning to ensure the family is on the same page. Look, again, if we work together, you're going to tell me if I've got this right and if this is the order that you want to tackle these things in, right? So just from what you've told me, I've prioritized it as such, but ideally you'll come back, you'll scribble over this thing and say, Mark, 3 needs to be 1, 5 needs to be 2, whatever it is, and we'll make this as per you want to deal with it, because it is your life. This is just the way I think that we should do it, right? So, okay, cool. So, how do we do this? What does the next 12 months look like? And, well, I've adapted this to fit my executive service level agreement. So this is where I think you fit into my value proposition and my planning process. In my executive service level agreement, I have 4 touch points a year, which I put on the table. These are 4 set meetings that we will have virtually, and I've aligned your roadmap with those touch points, right? So the first is we will check in 3 months' time from agreement, right? Between now and those 3 months, there's a lot of work that's going to happen. We're going to do it by email, we're going to do it by Zoom and Teams, and it's going to happen. But in 3 months, we will have a physical check-in, right, to see, have we done the things that I said I was going to do? Have you done the things you said you're going to do? And how are things tracking? So what are we going to do over the next 3 months? We're going to get your pension fund invested, right? That means we're going to have a conversation with the guy who's going to manage the money. We're going to give him a mandate. He's going to come in. He's going to tell us how he can do it. And you're going to tell me if you're comfortable with him managing the money. If you are, we'll move forward with that. If you're not, we'll bring somebody else in, right? As I said to you, I don't manage the money. So I can put recommendations. We've done the planning, which dictates a return that you need. But I've got no control over how that return is delivered. There are other people that we call on and resources that we'll use. You and I will sit on the same table. We'll evaluate that person, right? But we'll get that done. Bottom line is we'll get it done. A big one is aligning your budget surplus to your goals and priorities. So making sure that number of 35 is in fact correct. It's the number that shows up before you get paid every month. It's crucial that we get that number right so we can allocate accordingly. And then this is a bit of a bigger task, but building out what the second chapter may look like, right? So, thinking about where it is in the world, and just sort of a big picture saying, are we going to buy? Are we going to rent? How much are we going to spend? What do we want to be doing in this life? So we can build out this scenario or start to build out this scenario. I know it's a big thing, but it needs the attention so that we can get it right. All the investment decisions we make from here on out are based on that, right? So we can't just skim over this and say, throw all the money offshore. We've got to know where, what, why, how, right? Okay, cool. And then allocate the sign-on bonus, right? So there's 2 bar coming in. We don't know where to put it, but again, that's going to be dictated by the second chapter scenario and understanding your current reality, if those are what you've said they are, right? Cool. So then in the next 6 months, again, there's a physical check-in, but again, between now and then, there's going to be a lot of work. And in this check-in, I would have done a cost and performance analysis of your existing investments, right? So I'm not going to do that now unless you tell me that's the priority. But at this meeting, which is 6 months from now, and every 12 months thereafter, so basically once a year, you would have this meeting. In this one now that's coming up, I will do a deep dive into the performance of your funds, where they're invested, what it's costing, and the asset allocation. Are you taking on too much risk for the return you're getting? And more importantly, is it aligned to your plan, right? So is the risk aligned to your plan? Is the return aligned to your plan? And what are you paying for that? Could it be cheaper elsewhere? Or, are we happy with it, right? We'll give you all the information to make an informed decision. Cool. And then let's look at the potential new investments for the existing RA contributions to benefit the second chapter of your life. All right, cool. Again, second accountability session. This is the point, Paul, that I think, based on what you've told me, we bring your wife into the planning. So we've now done some groundwork. You've got your, excuse my French, your shit together, and you're feeling confident to now have this conversation with her. All right, cool. So we bring her in. And at this point, Paul, I would have done your existing risk cover analysis, right? So I'll know what you're getting at RMB, I'll know what your personal stuff is. And when we have this check-in, I would have evaluated it against what you actually need, given life here and life abroad. And I would have got some comparative quotes in terms of what you're paying. Is it market related? Is it worthwhile moving it, keeping it? I'll give you all the information you need again there to make a decision. Right? Cool. And then 12 months from now is when we have our annual forward planning meetings. This is basically the meeting that we've gone through now, where we just discuss life, right? So what's happened? How have the last 12 months played out, given everything we've done? And how, what are the plans for the next 12 months? Because these aren't static goals. They're constantly moving, and we're constantly working towards in your case, it's the second chapter, but we need to understand what's happened and plan ahead for the next 12 months. Okay, cool. So that's a lot, right? And now, in order for us to work together, this is what it's going to cost, right? So the fee for this is 54,269. So there's a whole bunch of numbers there. That's just a function of an increase over the last few years. But that's the fee in the first year. We meet again in this meeting and we recontract, right? So every 12 months we'll recontract. You'll decide if you're comfortable with the fee you're paying and the work that's being delivered. Is there sufficient value to warrant continuing to pay me? Paul, I don't really care how you pay this. First prize is I send you an invoice, you make a payment, and we get the ball rolling. You could tell me, Mark, take it off the back of my investments, in which case you would need at least 5.5 million, where I can charge you 1%. It's up to you, right? So pay it how you want to pay it. I just need to know that you see sufficient value in the work we're going to do to pay me 54,000 Rand. All right, cool. So Paul, I've done a whole bunch of talking. You now tell me where you're at and what you think and what you want to do. And that is where I stop. And then we sort of dive into it. So maybe if anyone's got questions or whatever it is, we can jump in there.
Thanks, Mark. Sure, it's really in detail. Great, man. Anyone have any questions? I've got a few, but anyone else want to ask? Russell.
Okay, that's a great. Hi, Mark. Great to hear from you. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing. I've also seen you quite regular on LinkedIn, so yeah, you're not a stranger to me as well. Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's quite a very detailed process. I guess the question I want to ask, so I like how you've actually laid out the meetings, because I assume it's also a way of with all divided meetings like that, and aside from displaying your cost at the below, you're also kind of getting commitment from the client, so that it's everything's not shoved onto you in terms of responsibility. With your division of meetings, so after you've gone through the next 90 days, next 180, next 270, next 360, then afterwards, when you recontract with the client, do you actually set up those meetings again, but it's per each life goal of the client, or is it usually like a risk analysis and a performance investment cost analysis again?
No. So let's say we get through the first 12 months. Recontracting is like I say recontracting because it's like a null event, right? You get to this annual forward planning meeting and you just you've just got shit to do, right? There's work to do. And what we will do is sort of say, okay, so we're going to have these meetings, great. You know, has anything changed on this front here? Do we need to sort of realign what we're going to do over the next 12 months, or are we still working towards all of these bigger plans, right? So this one's obviously gone because we've invested the money. We still need to, so in this meeting here, so what actually happens is your accountability in year 2, accountability sessions are really, whatever we do in this meeting here, there's some work that happens off the back of that. I do the work, client does the work, and then when we have this meeting, the following year, we just check in and say, what's happening, how things going? Yeah, we did this, you were going to do that, how's that played out? The idea with the accountability meetings is just to keep ahead of what's going on in the client's life. So, you know, a lot of my clients work in the banks and bonuses come in March, right? So in my mind, I want to know that money is allocated before it's received, right? So things like bonuses and increases, we want to keep abreast of when they pay their kids' school fees. So, you know, we prompt them, hey, school fees are due in Jan. Are you paying up front again this year? You know, we got to pay before the end of December. You know, we want to, by having these meetings, clients are sharing stuff with me. We're making notes, loading it onto Xplan, getting triggered to remember to send it out there. So the two big ones is this meeting here, where every year I do a performance review. So we just do a high level thing and say, okay, great. So these are all your investments. These are the assumed investment returns that we planned for. And then we go and get what the actual investment returns were. And then I look through it and say, okay, we're looking for inflation of 5 to 7, like 12%. We got 4. Okay, shit, that's a red flag. And I'll make red flags and green flags mentally. So if we're looking for 12 and we got 40, well, that's also an issue, right? Because we've probably got way too much exposure to something that's run really hard. So I kind of just flag that, and then I'll look into it more, right? To say, okay, what's happened? Is it a function of the entire market? Everything's at a great time, or everything's at a shit time, or is it a fund manager issue, right? Is it a fund manager concern? Because if it is, then we need to bring those people in to have that conversation. If there's a share portfolio, every 12 months, there's a portfolio manager in this meeting. They actually start the meeting. So I'll say, Paul, like for him, his existing pension fund is now being managed by a portfolio manager. So every 12 months, this guy comes in and he will start this meeting with his review. He gets half an hour and then he's out. And then we carry on with the rest of the review. But yeah, these two meetings, so in terms of like our prep in the office, this is a big one. This is a big one. Because when we do this, we send the client last year's balance sheet, and we update everything we can update, and they need to update the rest. So I want an updated expenditure report. I want updated liabilities. I want the inclusion of any assets. We should know all of the asset stuff and the liability stuff through all of these meetings here. Basically, expenditure, we need to know what's going on. Then we update that prior to the meeting. And in the meeting, we start all over again. So we show current reality. So look, this is 2021's annual forward planning, and we'll show you, look, your assets were this last year, they're now this. In this meeting, we don't go into the reason. We just say your RA was 509,000 and now it's 650,000, right? And I just leave it there. I don't go into any sort of performance discussions. You know, then we'll just talk about if they raise it. Like I've got all of this stuff in the client file. So online in the client file here, I've got 12-month statements. So I can raise and say, oh yeah, it's 15%. Why? I'm not really sure. Like markets have been good, but we'll get to that in our meeting that comes up in 6 months from now, unless you want me to look at it now. So I've got the information if they call on it, but I don't address it unless they. I'm trying to train them to say, in this meeting we deal with life, in this meeting we deal with money. Life and money, life and money. Naturally, the two come together, but I've got the info if they need it. I don't raise it. I don't want this to be one big meeting of trying to do everything. Also so that I can continue to demonstrate value over the 12 months and they continue to receive value and continue to pay my fees. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, Mark. So this is a live case. Do you normally try and get the partner involved as early as possible?
Yeah. So in the introductory call, I'll have that conversation. I'll say to you, you would have given me some information, Paul. When I ask them, who are the people in your life? It's your wife. It's okay, cool. So how do you and your wife normally work around money? So we'll have that conversation then. If they say, yeah, we do it together, I'll say, great. Well, whatever my fee is going to be, it's for the both of you. It's for your household. So, we should probably have this meeting together. Okay, cool. Or, she kind of does her thing, like in Paul's case, she kind of does her thing. She's been at RMB for 8 years. I would imagine she's got a sizable pension fund. She came from Standard Bank as well. But we don't really get into it. So I'm just picking up what he's putting down per se. We don't get into it because he's like, there's a reason they haven't done it. And I'll nudge it and say, look, well, it's not going to cost you more. If you guys are planning to leave, we need to make sure you're doing the right things and the same things financially to get on board with that big goal that's coming up. So we nudge it. But if they do it together, cool, be in. If they don't, the idea is that we have them both in there. Funny enough, with my female clients who are the primary clients, 90% of them plan independently of their spouse. These are women exactly like Paul from an asset perspective, just female, right? So they're earning high, they've got big bonuses, they've got big share portfolios, they've got the responsibility of the kids, and they just want to be able to do it like regardless of what the husband does or doesn't do. It's weird. It's a weird phenomenon, but that's how it plays out. And I've tried with one or two of them to sort of not force the issue, but constantly say we should bring him in, and they're just not comfortable with doing it. And I've kind of let it be and just said, look, if you want to plan independently, let's plan independently, right? It may mean things look a bit differently in your numbers, but that's your choice ultimately. So yeah.
Okay, and then I see that you address risk quite late on. Is that because in this case it's a fair presumption that they would have pretty decent risk cover at work plus assets strong, or?
Yeah.
Or...
So I think there's two things. I'm demonstrating that I'm not focusing on selling you a policy, right? So I don't, like, subconsciously, I think that's why I put it quite later on, because I don't want any sort of product stuff to sort of come in and like blur the picture. But yeah, in this particular instance, and most of these people, right, this is like small in comparison to what the RMB group benefits will be. There'll be like a 9x CTC before tax, which is massive. This is potentially an issue anyway, because I know there's a 75% or 70% income replacement ratio. So this has got to go. But it's just off the back of that. If there was nothing in place and the employer had nothing, and there was like big financial dependence, then it would potentially come in a lot sooner.
Okay. The Mark, at the moment, I mean, I know it's changed, but what percentage of your meetings are online now?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I had to, like, I'm super chuffed with this little thing that we've built and the way that I do it. But I've had to find a way to demonstrate value without sitting across the table, or without it being a product related or investment related. And I think that this sort of sums it up quite nicely, and it helps me pitch this fee. There's like strategy in the way we go through, even the way that I scroll down the page, right? It's like I know how many things I can do before I get to that. If I do that, I've lost them, right? Because then they're just looking down there. So it's like go, get their buy-in, get their commitment, like, and then it's like, okay, cool. So now once they've shown me that they're in, okay, great. So this is what's going to cost. And then it's either a hurdle or it's not a hurdle. Like, and if it's a hurdle, like you can still read the body language online. It's like, okay, so yeah, how are you feeling about the fee? Look, I get you got to get paid, Mark, but it's quite a bit, right? Yeah, it is quite a bit. But look, you're paying people along the way, right? So this stuff here is not being managed for nothing. This stuff here is not being managed for nothing. If you're comfortable with what we're going to do and the price that you're going to pay, we can look into all of this for you, right? So you tell me, Mark, I'm on board. You know, I can then go and look and say, look, of your investable assets, you're currently paying someone or something an amount, right? And if you had to pay that to me, there would be a shortfall of X every year, which you can then pay via invoice. It's up to you, right? So as long as you're comfortable, we can figure out how to get the fee paid. I just want you to know what it is and what you're getting.
Okay. Mark, do you record your meetings now that they're online so that you can go back and go through it if you've missed something?
Yeah. So, you know, there's two issues that I've got to work around. Is Teams doesn't automatically record, and I forget to record Teams, which irritates me. But I can never remember to do it for some reason. I need to like stick a sticky or whatever. I don't know. Then Zoom does automatically record, and I do record. Like all of these meetings are recorded and they're all saved in the client folder on Xplan, but never gone back to watch any of them. So they are there, but I've never actually used them. And it's probably just because I'm not quite sure how or why, or like maybe I'm hiding a little bit because I don't want to go and see and hear what I said or what I did. Like I tend to do that. I know I hide about certain things. Like I don't want to deal with certain things, but at least I know now that I'm doing it. So one day I'm going to be like, you know, get out and go and fucking watch the video, dude. Like there's a reason people are like shooting you down or whatever it is, you know. So yeah.
And I mean, with when you send the asset map link, are most people, because I mean, if they don't, if a chap like this doesn't populate that, and even if he does, it's a lot of work on his side.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a separate meeting where you sit and you go through that all?
No, so our meetings are, introductory call is 45 minutes, discovery meeting is 2 hours, presentation meeting is 2 hours. That's the commitment I require from the client. These are also all self, self-sorting is not right, but it's, people are self-selecting, right? So if they can't commit to a 2-hour discovery meeting, they're not committed. They're not involved, right? The process is going to take this long. So if they see 2 hours and they're like, oh, Mark, I don't have 2 hours, these are all warning signs which are coming up, right? It's going to show up somewhere. So it's a 2-hour meeting, and in that meeting, we're just talking, and it's pretty quick. Like I just take notes. Like I'll show you here. We just take notes, and I guess like this is Paul's notes, right? These 2 pages, and over here. Okay, so it's these 4 pages, right? But like we get through it. It never takes 2 hours for a discovery meeting, but we've allocated the time, and in that meeting we'll get the info.
Yeah. But what I mean is, if they don't fill in the assets in do you then send them a separate form where they could fill it in, or not?
No. So in my process, introductory call, off the back of the introductory call, they get an automated email from Calendly to book it, which says, hey, we've had a chat. We're either on board. If we are, click here to book a discovery link. If we're not, here's my social stuff. Maybe we'll see each other somewhere else. And then when you click the discovery link, then there's to book it on Calendly to book a discovery meeting. Sorry, it's a bit confusing. In that Calendly page, there's a link to book the discovery, to go follow the asset map discovery link. If they don't do that, I get all of that information in the actual discovery meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So they either do it or they don't.
Okay.
I'm used to them not doing it in the past. So I'm just like in my mind, there's a track that I'm running on in terms of getting the information that we need.
Yeah. And when you use LFP and asset map, and I know it's quite new, but I mean, I see you create quite unique scenarios, which is quite nice to see how you do that. Are you using the integration at all or not?
Yeah. So off the back of a discovery meeting, I've made a whole bunch of notes. I've sent Marcus a voice recording of what's gone on in the meeting. He'll send a summary, and we go into Explain and create a task, which then gets assigned to him. He takes and I take photos of my notes and send it to him, and then he takes my notes and the voice recording and inputs everything. So the voice recording is not the meeting recording. It's like a 3-minute max. Hey, Marcus, met with Paul, spoke about A, B, C, D, and E, check the notes on this, just enough so you can send a summary. He takes the notes, puts all of that into Xplan. Then our paraplanner inputs, exports everything from Xplan into IWP, into the way that I wanted. So that's my understanding is with the click of a button, it goes from here to here, and then she's got to neaten everything up and make it look the way I want it to look. And then I will go and do, at that point, I jump in and I build out the scenarios for the presentation meeting. So I'll build out the current and 2.0, and then I'll tell Marcus, and so when I do my work, I build out current and 2.0, and I build out the one-page plan, which is just in Word. And then I tell Marcus, cool, dude, send current scenario, and that's also just exported via IWP directly into asset map. So that export happens for current and for 2.0, and then the one-page plan, he just puts in, when you go to that 2.0, there's a thing called notes, and then he just copies my one-page plan from Word into the notes, and when you pull a report, he clicks on current and 2.0 and notes, and then it pops out in that little format like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you send quarterly statements? So you're saying you talk once a year about the money. And I know some people just send out, I mean, I know we haven't for years now, but you don't.
No. We used to send out monthly statements like back in the day. And it just became, you know, because that's where the value was, right? And it just became such a, like, I was still at Judy then, and it was like a 2-day fucking exercise. You know, we had on a Friday, she had to like get all of them, request them all, and then on a Monday she had to, it was shit. And then we just stopped, and then we did quarterly, and then we just stopped quarterly. And clients get them from the product providers. We make sure all the details are correct at the product providers, and if they reach out, we'll send. But otherwise, we don't send any statements. We literally just deal with the money in that one meeting, unless something comes up like that it needs to be dealt with before.
I also see the way that you link the property expenses to the property. We haven't seen that before, but that's actually quite a clever way of doing it, because you're able to allocate those expenses to that particular property.
Yeah, it's quite nice for like rental or investment property, because clients have a picture of this asset and what it's doing for them, and they always forget what the rates and taxes are, what the levies are, what the this is. But now when you show it all there, and then it doesn't show you a net number, but you can just work out. So you're actually only getting like $3,000 a month from this, and in their mind they've just, but there's a 15,000 rand rental. Yeah, but your levies are like $5,000, right? Like, you know, so it helps them to start to see the picture of what this asset is doing. And then it's easy to have a conversation, because they're like, I could never sell that property. I'd never be able to get that sort of income. And you're like, well, 15, take all of that stuff for 5 off $1 million, it's a 5% return, right? You can get that out of the bank. And then it just goes into the other conversation, because the tenants are shit and it gives you a nightmare. Is it worth the hassle? And so it's a nice way of showing it.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm kind of exhausted there. Any other questions from anyone? There must be some. Come on. Ben.
Go Ben.
Yeah, nice presentation, Mark. I think, yeah, from a client's perspective, like if I was Paul, I'd be like, flip, yeah, I can see where my life is going. And I guess it also, from a client's perspective, it also does make sense. You know, you can say, okay, cool, yes, I understand the process, what this year looks like. But I guess, does that fee become a sticky point? Do some people just go like, you know what, yeah, this is brilliant, but flip, actually, you know what? Or does it just become another? Is it more in our minds or your mind, or does it become another? Or is mainly like another event? You know, that people are like, oh, okay, cool, that's what it cost. You know.
Do you mean in this meeting or in year two?
I was saying like in general. So like so not like Paul specifically, like what happened. I'm just saying like.
No, but I'm saying in the presentation meeting or in recontract in a year from now.
Oh no, I'm saying like in this presentation. So like if you met in the first meeting or like this, first time you meet this client, are they sort of like flip? Yeah, this is amazing. Does that fee become sticky? I mean, or
look, the fee is a thing, right? Because for the first time in a lot of people's lives, they're actually seeing what they're going to pay. It's there in black and white. This is what it's going to be. So it's not a null event for sure. It's there. It's boom. This is what it's going to cost. I think there are a couple of things that like tips that you pick up, right? So that's why in the first meeting, I was too scared to throw out a fee because I didn't want to, like, I couldn't tell you what it is. Like I've only got two service level agreements. There's an entrepreneur and an exec. Entrepreneur costs 22,000 and exec costs 54,000. But clients don't know that, right? So it's like when we're meeting, like if it's anyone like of the people that I can see on a screen, except for Dirk, I know if you've got the money to pay that you're going to be an entrepreneur client, right? Your lives are relatively simple. Like you don't need all of the shit that Paul needs. Like so you only need to be seen twice a year, and it costs you less, and there's a lot less work involved. I've done that math when we're meeting, so I know everything that I do when I'm building out this proposal ties into that value proposition. But what I was actually getting to is, yes, I've had issues on the price, and that's why in the first meeting I now say it's not going to cost you less than 20,000, and it's not going to cost you more than 70. So, like I said, it's a little bit tricky. Well, I don't know, sneaky, whatever it is. Like it's like anchoring. You're anchoring people to 20. So can I at least pay 20,000? Like if you can't pay 20,000, then we shouldn't talk because it's a lot of work that goes into this. And now they're anchored to 70 on the top end. And then when you come in at 54, like they're like, well, at least it's not 70, right? Like one guy said, well, what does the 70,000 look like? I'm like, no, that has got trusts and companies and it's flipping hectic, right? We'll get there, right? So yeah, it is a thing, dude. Like, and I also don't like some people like Paul was like, sweet Mark, let's go. But you can also see at a certain level of income and assets, it is a null event, right? You know, he's earning 2.4 million. His asset base is what was it, 18 million, right? Like of which 14 is investable. So you know when you say 54, that's I don't even know. It's not even 0.5%, right? It's less than he would pay anywhere else. So for a guy like that, you know, he's doing those sums as well. He's chilled about it, right? And when we talk, I'm like, yeah, look, it's 54. You could pay it to me via invoice. You could pay it to me off your investments, like the rest of the market does. You know, so again, you just like doing certain things to make them feel differently about it. And yeah.
No, thanks, Mark. And then just another question. I know, like, obviously you are 100% online, so I guess that's one of your non-negotiables. But do you ever have clients, or have you ever had it where people are like, flip, I'd like to hear what you have to say, but I really want to meet you. Like, I don't want to do this online thing. Is that ever, are people just more than happy to meet you online?
Yeah. Like it's just the introductory calls online. It's always online via Teams or Zoom. So, and then if the camera's off, I'll make a joke and I'll be like, did you not do your hair today or whatever? And then people are forced to put it on and then it stays on, right? Like, so there's that engagement. And then I just say, look, so if you're happy, you know, we do things online and, you know, our next meeting will be 2 hours, but it's online. So are you comfortable? I also have, like, all my new clients are not in Cape Town, right? I'm working, I've got 2 new clients that we're in the process of taking on. One is like our friends who we've made through Luke's school. They lived like down the road over here, but we're meeting online, right? It's just a thing, like, because I'm also moving to Portugal, right? So my business has to be online. There's not an option where we can meet, and I don't want to create an expectation around, oh yeah, we can bend the rules. Like, it's online. That's what it is. And I don't think you'll drive people away. It's more convenient, like, for people.
Mark, one thing, so, when we, not to pick on the FPR because they're great, but,
Yeah.
the idea of a financial planner is this whole plan that people do. And it's something we really battle with. We've done it, and it's actually meaningless, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do your clients get? Do they get anything? What document do they get? Do they get something that if they're sitting on a Sunday afternoon, they can look at something? Or
Yeah. So off the back of this meeting, they will get the proposal. So the current, the 2.0, and the plan. And then once we start implementing work, like the preservation fund gets invested, I'll then, and only once the work is done, right? So all of those things. So we've allocated the budget surplus, and the client will get a RWP report, right? Where we've got a current scenario, and then we've got the plan scenario, and the things that happened, right? So the graph goes from this to this because we've done this, and then in there, there's some stuff like, whatever. So it's recommendations, things we're going to do now, and things we're going to potentially do over the next 12 months. So I sat with, I don't know if RWP is like this for everyone, but I know they've sort of tweaked it for AdviceWorks, but it's pre-populated with a whole bunch of shit like in there, right? So and I think AdviceWorks has gone and put in a whole bunch of their stuff as well, right? So I sat with our compliance officer just to go through my process and then to tell her what I do, because initially AdviceWorks wanted us to do an RWP every time we did something, right? So current scenario, plan scenario, a whole bunch of recommendations, to cover yourself sort of thing. And I was like, I'm not using this as a cover yourself document. So once a year in my annual, so let's look at the new client. So Paul won't get anything now except his proposal up until we've implemented the things that we want to implement. So probably for the first 3 months, he's not going to get anything. Once the pension fund's transferred, the budget surplus has been allocated, then we can say, okay, cool, we've done some things. Then he'll get a report which is cool. This is the new sort of relationship, and it lists assets, liabilities, incomes, expenses, current scenario, plan scenario, and what we did to go from current to planned. All in that ticks compliance boxes, but in a user-friendly approach, so that it reads to the client. It's not a compliance thing, it's not an after-sales record of advice sort of thing. But it's very hard. It's not something I am proud of, right? It's not a document. Like, if I look at this proposal, like, I'm proud of that, right? It looks nice. It's easy to follow. The wording is cool. And I want clients to experience that. The report, so if we now look at a 12-month client, that one's probably fine. But I don't, man, like, I feel like the report that I give out is not up to scratch, right? There's a whole bunch of AdviceWorks shit in there that I haven't even read, and I don't know what it says, and I just know it ticks some boxes. And then there's a whole bunch of old mutual RWP stuff that's in there, and again, I don't know what it says. It just ticks boxes. When it gets to Mark stuff, it's cool, right? It's current scenario, plan scenario. That all reads nicely, but it's not a document like I'm proud of. Like, I want you to, here's your plan, But I also think our business probably doesn't need that document, to be fair. But if you go back to like FPI and financial planner of the year shit. Like if they came and looked and they said, where's the plan? Show me the plan. And then I take them to this. I say, well, this is the plan, right? And they say, no, give me the plan, right? And then I don't even know what's in the plan. So I'm going to have to, you'd have to make, which I don't want to do, because then I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to go make a plan that ticks their boxes, which is bullshit, because I'm not going to use it anyway. So that's where it's kind of like my philosophy with Advice Works, right? I do what I do, and I do it within their constraints. It ticks some of their boxes, but it works for me, and they're happy, right? And then I can just carry on and do my thing. And I feel the same for the FPR, right? So like I'm doing everything right. Like I'm not screwing people. I'm doing proper financial planning. But if they came in, like, from a compliance perspective, I think everything is there. It's just not the way they want it to be.
Not in their format, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, even when you're doing those reports, I mean, so we've made our own version on the IWP, our own plan, let's call it. But I mean, also there's a level of, I mean, you can go into a lot of detail, like with the two scenarios, the normal, current, and the 2.0. I mean, there are so much stuff you can put in there. You could also confuse the hell out of them there too.
Yeah, I honestly don't think, like at the end, so after my annual portfolio review meeting, so we have this online meeting now with the clients. We show them this is what life is, this is everything we've planned, and this is what life's going to look like, and we plotted out the next 12 months. Off the back of that meeting, our clients do get a hard copy of that. So we send them a thing, and that's, I asked them to read it and confirm that they agree with it. Nobody even responds to that email. They're like, hey, Mark, thanks for the meeting. Like, there was a document attached that you're like, but again, for Advice Works and Masthead's compliance, I upload that email along with the summary that we sent into Xplan, and it ticks their box, right? So for them, they see that I had a review. Here's the review document. Here's the summary, the minutes of the meeting, and any work that happened after that is all documented, product provider stuff, all of that stuff. So yeah, we've managed to tick their boxes like that.
Great, man. Well, listen, Mark, thanks so much for the hour and a half. I think it's been invaluable for a lot of us. Cool. You're doing great work, man. When are you leaving for Portugal?
End of May.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. Like, we're moving houses. Between now at the end of this month, we're moving to a different place for the next 6 months. And yeah, then we're moving to Portugal. We need to learn Portuguese. Got to get my kids into school. But it's like, it's all about living a life, right? So living your best life. And if that's what it looks like, then why not do it? Yeah, so that's what's happening. But yeah, it's been cool. I hope it was valuable, and you guys got some stuff from it.
No, it was great. Guys, any last questions for Mark or for anyone? Or any observations?
All right. Cool, guys.
Guys, thanks so much. Mark, thank you so much for your time. Everyone have a great week.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.